because the game is different. Like I want people to understand and our fans to understand that playing 82 games in the 80s and 90s is not the same as playing 82 games in the 2020s.
Reports suggest that Lakers security moved quickly behind the scenes after what insiders described as a heated exchange in the tunnel following the team's tough loss to the New York Knicks. According to Arena Whispers, Shaquille O'Neal approached LeBron James shortly after the final buzzer, and the situation became tense almost immediately. Eyewitness accounts claim Shaq positioned himself near the path leading to the locker room as players began to exit the court. When LeBron came through, Shaq reportedly asked a direct, pointed question that caused the surrounding Lakers staff and entourage to fall silent. The unexpected confrontation created an awkward pause in a space usually reserved for quick exits and post-game regrouping. Team personnel are said to have stepped in swiftly to defuse the moment, attempting to ease the tension before it escalated further. The exchange reportedly stemmed from LeBron's recent podcast remarks, which had already generated significant debate online. With cameras present and emotions still running high after the loss, the interaction—
It's less physical. And he's always done this his whole career. He never really done that. So, no, but the fact that it's less physical, I think it definitely helps him.
Yeah, mentally.
So many times I'm bruised up after the game. My shoulder hurts.
It definitely physical.
It's hurting.
So why were more guys playing 75 games a year then?
Because we was tougher. Well, now
Sources indicate that tensions were already high following the Los Angeles Lakers' 112-100 loss to the New York Knicks at Madison Square Garden on February 1, 2026. Observers noted that the final score barely reflected how lopsided the contest felt. OG Anunoby and Landry Shamet were hitting shots with ease, while Luka Doncic poured in 30 points. LeBron James finished with 22 points, but appeared frustrated as he walked off the court toward the MSG tunnel, seemingly replaying the game in his head. It was there, according to eyewitnesses, that LeBron encountered Shaquille O'Neal leaning against the concrete wall. Shaq was reportedly serious and imposing, immediately shifting the atmosphere. He confronted LeBron about recent comments regarding how tough today's league is compared to previous eras. LeBron responded by discussing the pace and spacing of the modern game, emphasizing its speed and skill-driven nature in 2026. Witnesses say Shaq did not accept this explanation. He interrupted LeBron, questioning whether pace matters if defenders cannot be as physical as they once were. Shaq suggested that focusing on speed distracted from a larger issue, the inevitability of age and the differences between eras. He reportedly brought up players like Anthony Davis and Joel Embiid, highlighting the number of games missed across the league as evidence that modern players are less expected to push through injuries. According to those nearby, Shaq criticized the notion that today's basketball environment is tougher, calling LeBron's podcast remarks unrealistic. The confrontation escalated to the point where staff and team personnel had—
That type of competition, that type of competitiveness is what I live for, and I miss it. I miss that aspect of playing the game of basketball.
Number 3, I'm going to go with the King, LeBron James. Number 2, I'm going with, rest in peace, Kobe Bean Bryant. And number 1, the greatest player of all time, is Michael Jordan.
Sources report that tensions were already high after the Los Angeles Lakers' 112-100 loss to the New York Knicks at Madison Square Garden on February 1, 2026. Observers noted that the final score barely reflected how one-sided the game felt, with OG Anunoby and Landry Shamet hitting shots comfortably and Luka Doncic pouring in 30 points, while LeBron James finished with 22. LeBron appeared frustrated as he walked off the court and headed into the MSG tunnel, likely replaying the game in his head. According to eyewitnesses, it was there that he encountered Shaquille O'Neal leaning against a concrete wall, not smiling, not joking. Shaq's imposing presence immediately shifted the atmosphere. He reportedly looked directly at LeBron and challenged him over comments about how tough today's league is compared to previous eras. LeBron responded by explaining the pace and spacing of the modern game, emphasizing how much faster and more skill-driven basketball had become in 2026. Eyewitnesses say Shaq was unconvinced, cutting LeBron off mid-explanation and questioning whether pace truly matters if defenders cannot be as physical as they once were. Shaq reportedly suggested that focusing on speed distracted from a bigger issue, noting that age eventually catches everyone and that the modern era is simply different. He turned the conversation toward current stars like Anthony Davis and Joel Embiid, highlighting the number of games missed across the league as evidence that today's players are less expected to push through injuries. Those nearby described Shaq's stance as clear. Players from earlier generations were expected to power through injuries that would now sideline someone for weeks. He criticized the idea that today's environment is tougher, reportedly calling LeBron's podcast comments unrealistic. The tension escalated to the point where staff and team personnel stepped in to create space between the two legends as voices rose. Onlookers described an intense scene, with security and executives hovering while others watched quietly from a distance.
Players say they fear LeBron.
I think when I first came into the league, Reese, some of the biggest concerns of injuries was like, a high ankle sprain. You was afraid to step on somebody's ankle because there was 4 or 5 guys sitting in the paint. And if you land on somebody's ankle, you get a high ankle sprain, you out 4 to 6 weeks. Now, that's not really much you don't really see that as much now because the game is so spread open, it's so much pace. But now you see the new high ankle sprain is the calf.
To understand Shaquille O'Neal's strong reaction, it helps to consider his background. He entered the NBA in 1992 and experienced multiple eras firsthand, playing through the tail end of the more physical 90s style, witnessing the hand-checking rule changes in 2004, and seeing how flagrant foul standards and freedom of movement rules evolved over time. For someone who dominated the paint during such a bruising era, hearing modern basketball described as tougher can feel like a dismissal of what earlier players endured. The debate also has a statistical angle. LeBron often cites pace to argue that today's game is faster and more demanding, but historically, the league average pace in the 1984-1985 season was around 102 possessions per game, and it remained near that mark in the following season. In 2026, the league average sits closer to 99.5 possessions. Some teams, like the 1984-1985 Denver Nuggets, pushed the tempo to roughly 107 possessions, which would rank among the fastest today. The Showtime Lakers regularly played above 100 possessions as well, all in an era with far more physical perimeter defense. The real difference lies in style, not just pace. Earlier decades allowed significantly more contact, especially on the perimeter and in the paint. Modern rules emphasize spacing, shooting, and freedom of movement. Defensive strategies like the Jordan rules were designed to contain Michael Jordan through constant physical pressure. For Shaq, toughness isn't only about speed, it's about what defenders were allowed to do when you drove to the rim. Legends like Larry Bird could still show up night after night ready to produce, despite such physical play. If some of those 80s playoff collisions happened today, they would likely result in automatic ejections and multi-game suspensions. When LeBron suggested on a podcast that calf injuries today can feel as serious as the high ankle sprain.
Players that's only been slowed down because of their age. I don't want to see the king coming off the bench.
So you don't even want to see him at the game at all?
No.
That's what make him a bad boy and the best that's ever done it. Don't get it twisted. I love LeBron, but
Shaquille O'Neal made his stance clear on Inside the NBA on January 20th, 2026, when discussing the league's top reserves. LeBron James was notably absent from his list. Charles Barkley also weighed in, suggesting that LeBron's chapter in Los Angeles might be nearing its end, and even hinting at a possible farewell run in Cleveland. Meanwhile, Magic Johnson, in a September 2025 interview, emphasized dominance over longevity in the GOAT debate, again placing Michael Jordan at the top. For legends like Shaq and Magic, wearing a Lakers jersey represents more than branding or career length. It symbolizes dominance in your era. That is at the heart of this clash. Not just numbers or pace, but the meaning of greatness when generations collide and the spotlight begins to shift. For Shaq, being a Laker is almost sacred. He delivered the last Lakers three-peat from 2000 to 2002 and vividly remembers what those finals demanded. It wasn't about pace and space debates or media narratives. It was about battling for 48 minutes against teams like the Spurs and Kings, squads constructed to wear him down. Every possession came with contact, and every drive required absorbing punishment from elite big men like Vlade Divac and Chris Webber. When LeBron frames today's game as tougher because of speed, Shaq hears a dismissal of the physicality and mental toughness that defined his era. That frustration isn't isolated. On January 28, 2026, five-time champion Ron Harper reacted to LeBron's calf injury comparison with a blunt post on X, calling the argument foolish. Harper, who played key roles with both the Chicago Bulls and the Los Angeles Lakers, guarding elite scorers well into his 30s, sees the conversation as about pride as much as performance. Veterans like him believe they endured a level of nightly physicality